I'm not a protester. I'm not a protester. This I do protest. I'm really not a protester, but I must protest. I really must protest and get this off my chest. Are we just going to stagnate while we procrastinate, protesting outside some factory gate while we perpetuate and propagate the same old worn out and obsolete tactics? Our petitions, our protest marches and our one-day strikes are starting to become a little bit geriatric. I'll give you examples. Right, there's 1 million protesters on the street. They're screaming no to war in Iraq. It doesn't stop an attack, and it doesn't stop the making of 1 million mourning mothers dressed in black. We all know about the civil rights marches. We've all heard of Martin Luther King's dream. Yet 50 years passes, and Black Lives Matter, we still hear protesters scream. And today we can protest against government cuts while politicians say we're all in this together. But austerity relentlessly has us protesting against one another. It's the benefit cheats or it's those immigrants' fault. So where are the protests about the billions in the bankers' votes? And what's their excuse? They call it a fiscal downturn. They claim it's complicated economics. It's straightforward and it's simple. What they're feeding us is complete and utter bollocks. But as I said, I'm not a protester. I'm not making a request to object or making a plea to the powers that be to allow me to stand in a particular place and spout some politically correct slogan in someone's face. Because that's never really going to change a thing, and I will not dance, and I certainly won't sing to somebody else's tune, because I'm nobody's coon. You see, nobody gives you freedom. If you're a man, you take it. A quote from Malcolm X: he wasn't asking for permission and he wasn't making a request, and we don't have to protest to be free. Our freedom is our birthright, it's our authority, and we can take it by any means necessary. But then there's the age-old question: how do you take that freedom? What can we do when every day we're told to conform, we're told to obey the rules, obey the law, and there's that constant pressure to follow the social norms? So what can we do? Well, there's this quote by a 19th century philosopher called Henry David Thoreau. I think he addressed this matter with what he had to say. This is how it goes. Unjust laws exist. Should we be content to obey them, or shall we endeavour to amend them and obey them until we have succeeded? Or shall we just transgress them at once? And let's say we transgress them at once. How can we do that? Well, we can take Rosa Parks as an example. Here's a woman who was a torch, a shining light of the civil rights movement, yet she didn't go on a protest. Yet she's the ripple that becomes the wave that brought about change. And not because she went on a protest, and not simply because she was tired and needed to rest. You see, she opted for some direct action, and she kicked up a real fuss when she sat down on a segregated bus and transgressed a law she knew to be unjust. And wasn't it Mahatma Gandhi who said, "An unjust law is in itself a species of violence. So let's challenge them with acts of resistance and acts of civil disobedience, because it's our inalienable right to act in self-defence. Because it's how we decide to live that determines whether or not we are free, not some lawmaker telling us what we can do and who we should be, or telling us what bullshit we need to digest and where, when and how we're allowed to protest. And I'm not saying we shouldn't go out and demonstrate and protest against the government, the elites, the Illuminati, but let's also step up and take some everyday responsibility. You see, because we can live as we choose to, we don't need approval, you don't need permission to take your position. It's an autonomous decision guided by your own vision. And when it's motivated by respect for our common humanity and a recognition of everybody's right to be free, we can unite, we can exercise that birthright, draw on that ancestral might, and maybe we can conclude this centuries-old fight with a clear and effective process. Unjust laws, we simply transgress. And hopefully we can put an end to these long and drawn out protests, because as I said before, I'm not a protester, even though I do protest. I am not a protester. This I must attest.